Careful what you say or you'll get convicted.
All right.
Every time, dude. I know it's coming. I know the end of the song is coming, and I still laugh.
It's funny. So how you guys doing? Tim, Kenny, doing good?
Good.
Doing good.
Good.
Doing real good.
All right. Hey, Kathy. Thanks for joining us.
Hey.
All right. Well, let's kick off the topic. Tonight, we are going to talk about how we would create a haunted house, or I guess you could say fake it or set one up for testing to see how people react. We're not talking about the haunted house during Halloween. Not a fun house, not a put bloody, scary things in there, but what would we do to make people think a house is haunted by ghosts or aliens? And how would you make it so people have experiences? So that's going to be the topic tonight. And I'm just going to start off with the opening comment. We've talked about a lot of different things that could be misinterpreted or could lead to somebody thinking a place is haunted. We've talked about what the structure looks like, the age, the catchphrases, the priming, the expectation, environmental factors. So we've gone through a lot of this stuff, and we've talked about it in various different shows. So I think it's going to be kind of fun to pull that together and say, okay, this is what we have talked about in the past. How could we use that to have a really interesting experiment or create a fake haunted house that people would, I'm going to bet, would have experiences by the time we're done with the show tonight, with our ideas flowing here and going back and forth on Messenger already today, and Tim almost falling down another rabbit hole like he always does when we get into these topics. I think we have some pretty good stuff to talk about tonight. So it's going to be a fun show. I'm just going to say hello to Kathy, John, JD, and Donna. Thanks for joining us tonight. And then I'm going to turn it over to Kenny for his opening thoughts.
Damn, gotta go for it. So
Hey, Bob.
I think this is a fun topic because I when you first mentioned it, I was disclaimer, I was pre-gaming like an hour ago, so I'm already feeling a little good.
Nice.
I might be pull a Tim tonight. So I think this topic is really fun because it's both like my first thoughts was, oh shit, are we going to supply people with ideas, you know, that they're going to use to fool other people? But then I thought, well, you know what? If we're telling these people, if everyone that's watching this learns what we're thinking of and how we plan to do it, maybe they're going to apply that later. So this is a good idea. I really think this is a good idea because there's a lot of tricks you can do. There's a lot. I know I've come across several deliberate tricks over the years. So I'm going to incorporate those in our talks tonight, and then really get into some ideas that you might not think of. Because I think I'll preface it like this. You have a lot of time when you want to create a haunted house because you don't have to announce it right away. You can take time. You can take a week, couple weeks, months, and then finally say, oh, this place is haunted. And you have so much time to prepare and set it up. And that's what I'm really going to get into tonight. So pass it off to Tim.
Well, so my first thoughts were, well, this is good, but I want to like kind of go like, what if I'm going to develop one, if I'm going to design one, like I wanted to learn what made people scared? Like, what is like a fear? And then learn about common fears and how people become, uh, put in a fear state or a panic state or a stress state. So I ended up like started reading that, and I went way overboard, and I ended up just reading all day long papers about what causes fear, and so I have like a lot of I know I have a lot of fear-based research and some ideas from that. Not necessarily that I ended up like figuring out how to design it, but I have really good information, I think, that I can throw down that we can at least like have a basis for like what we could build upon.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Cool. All right. Well, then let's start at the top of the list I put together. The first thing is, what type of structure? What would it look like? What would your dream haunted house look like? And what would you do to, let's say, promote and advertise it? Because
That's like
obviously we
half my
want the
list.
word out there.
That's half the list I have here.
Well, no, that's good. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's the first hour done. Thanks. I'll be back in an hour. So I'll throw that out there. I'll start with Tim. What would your ideal haunted house look like?
I'm kind of torn between, I want to go Victorian, the classic Victorian house. I like that style. I mean, I like those houses anyway, so I'm naturally drawn to them, but they seem to have a historical kind of sense to it.
Okay.
Those are the types of houses that are haunted. I'm as far as a building goes, a closed prison, maybe. I don't know, but as far as a house, I would definitely go Victorian. Absolutely.
Okay.
I'd probably do the same kind, except I would also, because that to me is the classic haunted house. Victorian is classic haunted. So I might go with slightly run down. Because it has that, if it has that look like, does somebody actually live here? And you realize they do. It's wow. Okay. This is kind of a rundown kind of house. Maybe there's something. What's the history? Why is it like this? And then you find out like there's a big story about a murder and stuff, and it was abandoned for so many years. So I think that's where I would go, like between those two, like a Victorian, an old classic Victorian, and then more of a rundown kind of house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would probably do the same thing. I'd go for the older Victorian, or maybe an old mental asylum, a sane asylum, just because you're already, by saying that, you're thinking there's going to be bad things that happen there. There was bad people that were there. There were mentally ill people that were there. And that's always one of the ones that's tagged as far as, the buzzwords or the buzz things that somebody will say, oh, just because it's that, it's haunted. The other thing I would do is I would want it to be kind of isolated. I would have it kind of, if you could find a place that was like a long driveway with a lot of creepy trees and heavy brush on the side as you drove up to it, and you don't really see much, and it's pitch black when you're coming up to it. Something that sets not only the internal part of the house and the actual house itself, but something leading up to it, the outside, the isolation, something that I think would put people kind of on the defensive or be a little scared when they're first riding up to this place as well.
Right.
So that'd be about the only other thing I would add to it. And obviously it'd be gold if it would be next to some sort of Indian mound or Indian burial ground. I mean, we're looking for buzzwords. We got to think. The thing that's funny, people that associate terms and locations with being haunted, that's what we would want to do. You'd want to play that up. So you're, from the very beginning, you're creating the freaking expectation in the story already.
Yeah.
All right. So we have our place. We have a place picked out.
Just to kind of go a little bit on the side of that, my other thought would be a place that absolutely you would think would be the safest place to be in.
Ooh.
I don't know what that would be. I don't know if that would be like an old, maybe a church that's just closed, maybe a fire station, a police station that's no longer in use, just some place that would immediately give a sense of security, only because I think it'd be really fun to play on that. But I'm going to stick with Victorian and old rundown just because I like that. But
and we've had a couple other suggestions: old farmhouse, rundown penitentiary, and a plantation, or an old church. I like the old church idea, but only if there was a supposed story of an exorcism gone awry that's associated with it.
I like the idea that the abandoned school
jumping from the bell tower.
Abandoned schools, that would be a good one
good,
too.
Yeah.
An old police station.
And
sure.
You know what? Even like the unassuming house, like the unassuming row home, where it's like you don't think that could ever be haunted because it's a row home. You know what's scary about that? And then you go in, and it's all about the presentation.
Yep.
Yeah, like grandma's home, like just something sweet that you would be put at ease before we start torturing you.
Go in, there's blood splattered all over the place.
The 3 tortured souls are going to torture the rest of you now. All right, so we have a lot of different ideas of the type of house or structure, the building we would use, where it would be located. What would you do as far as the backstory? And then use that in obviously advertising. This isn't a marketing exercise. So we're not going to talk about how we would actually put out videos and all that stuff. But what would the backstory of this? Well, you can. That's fine. I mean, there's obviously ways that are real powerful, and I've taken a lot of classes lately on digital marketing and how to really get a message across, which could be an interesting discussion. But let's get into the next part of. What would the backstory be that you would create for it?
Well, I'll go with the.
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
I'll go. There was a couple things when I was reading about fear and stuff that came up, and that there's a study. It's called social fear transmission, and that's fear that's learning to be afraid by watching someone else be afraid. So a backstory that and the law of oh god, now I'm going to mess it up. Contagion, the law of contagion. Okay. So those two things. So social fear transmission is just basically seeing somebody being afraid or witnessing someone being afraid or hearing stories. So having like somebody that could convincingly be able to recount something to you that happened to them in the house. Whether it be publicly or in a post or maybe as a presentation before you go in, you get to interview somebody that has been there and had something happen to them. The law of contagion, which I think is really cool, is using innate objects, whatever they are, and you end up assigning certain qualities to the innate object due to the person that had it before them. So some of these ideas were like, what was the serial killer Gacy?
John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah, he painted clowns, I think, and people would see these. They'd show these paintings of clowns, and they would go, "Oh my God, it's such a great painting of a clown," and they would say, "Well, John Wayne Gacy painted that," and people automatically like didn't want the painting, like they became completely aversive to it, just because of that person had that or that person did the painting. Things like they also did I watched a nice experiment where they just had an old sweater and they would let someone see the sweater. It was a very nice sweater. People liked the sweater. They let people try the sweater on, and they told people afterwards that sweater was owned by Hitler. And so people freaked the flip out over that and just like were angry that they let him they let someone put it on. So having something tangible to say something happened there, or you have relics of something bad that happened there, whether it was a mass murder, I don't know, maybe it was the Ouija board that summoned all the demons or the portal in the bathroom for the demons to come through, but something there that has a bad backstory that you still have tangible that could be there.
Someone
So
to go golfing.
I would like to have those things.
Yeah, well,
All
and
right.
Bob says he'd want an abandoned nightclub, ghost strippers,
All right, Bob.
parapornal. See what I did there?
No,
There'd
no.
be obviously a lot of orbs detected in that.
Yeah.
On that house.
Oh, but bum.
All right, so I'll pass it to Kenny. What do you
right.
think?
So I thought about this, and there's actually a few techniques that I've used and been a part of in the past that works really good. And it goes back to what I said in the beginning, the opening statements, where I said you have a lot of time to do this. So if I was doing this and I was really set out to, I really wanted to make a name for myself or my building, my haunted house, I would create several social media accounts and start posting. Like, we're talking months in advance. Start posting little things. Oh, we investigated this place. It's got this ghost. It's got this story. And then, because I have multiple accounts, I would communicate with each other. So you'd have this group A, talking to group B, all fictitious, but still talking to each other, saying, oh, we've confirmed your results. You know, this is awesome. We got the same thing. And it builds up that story. So this, going into it, I mean, if you have the time, and it really only takes a few minutes a day or, you know, every other day, where you post something and you can get pictures, especially if you own the place, you can walk through, get some pictures, get some EVPs where you have, like, I mean, I've done it. And when I've done recreations, sometimes I enlist the help of my wife, and I'll just ask a question and she can whisper. So it's not my voice. Or I can have her whisper over top of me asking a question. Boom, we got an EVP. We posted on our website. This place is freaking hopping from the beginning, you know? You start these rumors, you start posting in different social media groups, and like you find like local stuff. Like for me, it would be Pennsylvania, like Pennsylvania ghost hunters or haunted places, and just start posting like, hey guys, have you ever been here? I heard this group said this and this, you know, you should check it out. And I think that's building the hype right there. I mean, and this goes in, like, I actually broke my notes into two chapters. Chapter 1 is priming.
Yep.
And this is all going into it. And then chapter 2 is it. Well, we'll get to that in chapter 2, but that would be the beginning. That would be the beginning stages for me. And then kind of like on the tail end of that, well, I have a couple other steps, but I don't want to take up too much time. We can rotate. But that would be my first steps. Just starting the buzz, starting the rumors, getting it out there.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think for me, the story that I would come up with would have to fit the type of building or house it is. Right. So, you know, if it's a hospital or an old penitentiary, that's easy to come up, you know, people were murdered there. They were, you know, bad people stayed in the prison. They died there, the electric chair, hangings, whatever. And then the old Victorian, it could be as simple really as, you know, many in the old days, people would die at home and then they put their bodies out to lay in state really in one of the parlors.
Yeah. So
that history. And then anytime you tend to say that there's some sort of child ghost or childlike paranormal activity, that seems to especially draw people in and creep them out. So I think for me, it would have to be context specific to the location. But I would do similar things like Kenny did, and those are all great ideas. I love that, how to basically manipulate social media, digital media to play against, and then get people to start talking about it. And then maybe two other things I might do is put up cameras in the location and put them on the internet so people can watch them and comment on them. Because you know they're going to see shit no matter what goes on. And then that spreads like wildfire. That way you're also getting people involved in the location before they even really get there. And it's all, like you said, it's all priming and get them to talk.
I can provide an example that supports exactly what you just said. So I'm totally going to go off the rails here, but TikTok videos. I did a live session, and all I did was set up my phone. And I started the video. I said, this is a live thing. I'm setting it up here. I want you to see me so you know it's not just a picture, but I'm going to leave it in my basement looking at all my haunted stuff. You tell me if it moves. You tell me if freaky things happen. And I walked away. And I came up here, sat here, brought it up on my screen here, and watched all the comments. Holy shit. Nothing freaking moved, but everybody saw something. Everybody saw this and that. And then when my motion sensing light went off, holy shit. Forget it. People were freaking out. And I actually explained that later, because I didn't want to deceive them. But that falls into exactly what you were saying. Like, you don't need to really provide too much. Just put a live cam up and people will see shit.
And they'll feel like they're part of it.
Yes.
And that's a very powerful way to get engagement and get people talking about it. Good. So we kind of have our place. We've started promoting it. Now we're going to have the haunted ghost hunts. So people show up to the house. And I think the first thing I would do is obviously bring them into the house, low lighting. And we'll talk about what's in the house and pictures and context and contextual cues and certain rooms set up certain ways. I want to talk about that. But first, when they get to the house, I think obviously I would have the lights low. You might have, for various reasons, the temperature down, or if it's hot, you might, and there's a breeze outside, leave a couple windows cracked, maybe just a wee little bit so they don't really see it, but you're going to have some cool breezes or airflow going through there. And I would have people go through the house and you'd give a guided tour, because back to what Kenny said, you want to prime them. So take them all around and tell all the stories and give them some hints on what to look out for and what to expect and what other people have experienced at the location. And then maybe if you have your marketing materials and your people talking about it, maybe you had some other ghost hunters in before this, leave their pictures or evidence or their comments in a book somewhere where people can review it. So the whole time you're just kind of building and priming and giving expectation ready to go. So that's what I have for when they first get there. Let's circle back up to Tim.
Okay, so this is from one of the papers or one of the articles that I read. It was called Playing with Fear, a Field Study in Recreational Horror. And so there are two researchers, and they're just studying the idea of why people enjoy submitting themselves to horror. But along the way, they've picked out a few things that result in the best type of horror for people to experience. So it's a window of ideas to excite and prime. So picking up with what you said, the 3 tips that they come out with for doing a haunted location, and I believe that theirs are probably more towards like Halloween stuff, but the first tip is going to fall in nicely, and that is number 1 is to amp expectations. Things like waiver forms.
Beautiful, the waiver form.
That's awesome, dude.
We are not responsible if you have a heart attack due to fear.
Yes. So waiver forms, you nailed it. You called it like having other things in the area where you can read people's past, or having a person there that can relay their prior experiences, but have things like based on a true story. The other thing that's really cool is to say, well, in order to do this, we're required at this point to have an ambulance on scene. So
and a medical professional.
So you have an ambulance, you rent out one of your, it's probably very expensive, but you have some type of medical, they don't have to interact with you. They just park across the street.
Oh my!
You just tell them they're here for you, just in case. We've had this before, so now because of the last person that was here, we have to have an ambulance. So basically what you're doing is you are just absolutely you are kickstarting their fight or flight or freeze response. So yeah,
Cool.
I like that idea too.
The waivers and the ambulance. That's priceless, Tim.
That's awesome, dude. That's
All
awesome.
right. All right, Kenny, back down to you.
How am I going to top the ambulance? Fuck. All right. So, oh my God. I mean, I this is a good routine. I mean, there's almost a standard procedure with this kind of stuff, and it really wasn't hard to come up with a list of things to do. As soon as a ghost hunting team gets there, or anyone, as soon as a tour group or somebody wants to come through because they heard the stories, because we primed them, we marketed the shit out of this, and now people are showing up. So we bring them on. We do a tour. We do a guided tour. We talk about how, you know, items moved in this room. We heard a little girl's voice, you know, maybe singing in this room. And then we take them upstairs and we go to a room that we don't use too often. And we tell them, this is the room where the most activity happens. And this used to be the girl's room. And this is the girl that was murdered. And it was never solved. So we don't know who actually killed her. And she keeps trying to tell people who killed her. But we don't
As
have
long
that.
as you don't get a dick like Kenny Biddle showing up and telling you none of this is true.
I mean, you know what? Because I even thought, like, yeah, because this is how bad I think about this shit. I was like, well, if you tell a story about a basement, someone was murdered and then drugged down to the basement, you could take a power washer. Like if you have like me, I have like cement walls. Where you could go down, clean a section of the wall, leave it for a couple months. Now it's discolored, and now you can tell people the rumor is that family killed the child, buried her in the wall, and we think this is where she is right here because it's discolored. It doesn't match the rest of the wall.
Put some fresh, tough
fresh
planing
stucco
in there.
some
Fresh,
just a little
cement
bit
over it or something.
just enough to get it out of the normal pattern.
I like
and
that.
Boom, you got a great story. You also keep items, old items, antique items like a chair or a bed, and you say, "This is the original chair. This is the original bed that she slept in. We kept it in this room, but we don't use this room because we're so worried about the activity. We have so much activity. We're scared to go in here. So we don't go in here, but we keep that bed in there because we think it keeps her happy. And then you keep a photo album of all the pictures you've gotten in that room. You keep it inside the room or right outside, and you show the people, like, this is what we've got. This is amazing. Look at these orbs. Look at these mists. This is a shadow. We can't figure out what the shadow came from. You know, here it is. And then, I mean, just saying we don't go in there anymore. I think if you can say that with a straight face, you got it. Because I think that has a huge impact with people that already believe this stuff exists. And I think when you tell them that, I'm guessing the teams that use the photojournalist vests that are bulging pockets worth of equipment are like, that's where I'm going to be, right there. Right there. That's where I'm going. We're setting up every freaking Pelican case equipment that we have right in this room.
And the other thing I would do to add to that, which reminded me, is I think we should provide all the horse shit equipment that people get results with, that they think they get results with. If you don't have it, we'll provide it.
Right.
And provide them minimal, if any, training, or the training should be centered around anomaly detection of things we know, like a K2 meter. It's going to go off no matter what, because obviously we're going to have Wi-Fi in the house and maybe two-way radios we're clicking here and there. I mean, you're gonna give them. I want to give them the equipment that they've seen on the shows, so they're like, "Fuck, we're going to get something."
Right.
And when they do, they're going to freak out. Those are great. The one other thing I would add, I would do things that have metaphorical or symbolic reference or inference, like we're going to start at witching hour, or be careful at witching hour, or be careful at 3 p.m., or you have a special ghost hunt because activity is really high around Halloween. Those type of things to build it just a little bit more.
Could you use the approximate date of death being close?
Anniversaries of
Anniversary, yeah.
things that happen, because that's
Or
when the activity pops up.
they died. The coroner came out to the house and said at 6:42, that's when she finally expired from her knife wounds from
There.
the killer.
There we go, Bob. Yes, we're bringing back the bleeding statues. I knew we did work on that for a reason.
That's good stuff right there.
Awesome. Okay, so we've talked a lot of different things. I think we've already talked about kind of the context a little bit, and I would have people investigate in groups, because there's nothing better than people playing off of each other. Have them go around and do it together, and you know what? Let them be sloppy. Honestly, everything we talk about to control your environment, don't do that. Let them run around. Let other people be walking in the attic when somebody else is on the first floor. Let them hear footsteps. Let them just kind of create their own mess, because you know they're going to misinterpret that thing.
Can I cut in just two things? Yeah. I have two things before we get into letting them loose. I would also provide old photographs.
Yes.
Of previous owners. And say these were left in here and we think this is the person. And in addition to that, the second thing is provide some actual valid history. Because if you can provide something, names and dates that they can research and actually validate, because there's your buzzword right there. If they can verify that's a real person, that I think that solidifies your research, because it's like, oh, this is a real person. We actually found that they really did live here. Holy shit, this must be true. And just embellish. You know, pull a Zach Baggins. Just embellish the shit out of the story and add on to it. You know, what they didn't cover in the papers. And there you go.
One of my favorite things would be to add, and these photos always fascinate me and kind of creep you out a little bit, the post-mortem photography that they used to do back in the day. And you could say you just buy one of those random photos or print it and make it look old, put it in an old frame and say, there's the kid that died in the house. And actually seeing the dead body in the photo. That ought to get things started.
Oh man, I bet you if we did that, somebody would come up with a photo and saying, look, we captured that kid. This looks just like that picture.
Yeah.
Guarantee it.
All right. Well, I've kind of led the discussion. Either of you have a certain topic we haven't covered up to this point? Because I think what I'm going to start getting into next is kind of what would we do in the environment to manipulate certain things to make them think they're having activity in the location.
The only thing I would add is that it kind of straddles the different sections we're talking about, because once you get ghost hunters in there, either between the fictional ghost hunters that you might write about from your multiple accounts that you're playing with, to real ghost hunters. That sounds funny. I don't know why. Sounds funny. But collect their stories and then recycle them, put them back out. Like, this group just arrived. They just had this experience. Post it. And then keep doing it. Every group that comes out, you more and more, and that builds that reputation. So that's all I wanted to add.
Okay, Tim?
No, I'm with you. I like the idea of once you get the water flowing with other people that have experiences there, ask if you're going to post that stuff, can we say the future people that come here that might have similar experiences, can they contact you and talk to you about your experiences? And then I don't know. It just kind of snowball. I like that.
I think that's a good
Mhm.
thing though, because if you can offer references, as soon as you got the ball rolling and people start getting on board, and we've seen it. Ghost hunters will come out, and I'm definitely stereotyping, so you can send me a hate mail if you want, but I do see it where ghost hunters will come out and they will, right there, send it, Kenny Biddle, right here, send it to me. But they associate everything with the stories that they've already heard. So they build upon it. And now once you have one or two groups in there that, well, basically put the blame on anomalies they can't explain on the stories that you made up, you can now say, hey, if you want verification, contact this group, contact this other group, and they can tell you, and you guys can work together, and maybe all of you can come out here, and I can charge everyone to come out. So there you go.
We'll give you a discount if all of you come out.
Yeah, $5 off a ticket.
Yeah, one of the things I do as they're going through and doing their investigation, I would have them stop every, I don't know, maybe 2 hours or so, and have everybody get together and have them start sharing what they've experienced up to that point.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
So it really gets the ball rolling with people having experiences. The other thing I would do is for their emotional and physical state. Now, you can't do anything too crazy here, obviously, but I would not have anywhere where they could really lay down and go to sleep. So being tired, at least if you're going to, I want to do this overnight probably.
Right.
Or very late into the night, and not allow them at least any comfortable place to lay down and sleep, or nowhere to really, get some rest. Because I think if you get them tired and you have any sensory deprivation, keeping rooms dark, maybe you have a light fan in the background that provides some white noise, because you're going to pick up things out of that white noise. Yeah, I mean, obviously you're going to provide them some water and soda and whatever else, but for the most part, I try to keep them a little off their game by getting tired and a little discombobulated as the night goes on.
Right.
So just to kind of back you up there, disorientation is one of the, let me see if I can find it, but disorientation is one of the key things to keep a fear level high. They use arousal, but I'm kind of like, do I really want to say that?
Whoa.
But arousal as in arousal for fear.
Now you're getting into Bob's.
Easy. Bob's going to be at the strip club haunted house again.
Yeah. So reading it, I was like, they keep using the word arousal. They keep saying it. I don't think that means what they think. Or maybe it's me. I'm not sure. But so to keep the kind of the fear arousal, keep the energy up in your body. So disorientation. And when you use talked about the fan, they talk about a disorientation technique of a cacophony of sounds. So just different types of sounds that don't make a whole lot of sense at the time, but make sense in their place.
Yep.
So you can have a fan blowing, but for some reason there's a small set of wind chimes across the room. So you get the fan, and then you have, the tingle of, somebody might want to move it, somebody might move it, but the use of creaking floors. I saw someone say, make sure your floors creak when you walk. But a lot of different sounds at the same time is just for sound for disorientation was good. Yep. So if you can keep them disoriented, you can keep their alertness arousal, which is just, I guess that's the same damn word. But anyway, you can keep them alert and suspicious.
Like a continuous high alert kind of thing, where you never let them drop down to a normal level.
Right.
So they're always tense. They're always anxious. And you can really play with that. Yeah.
Just do what Egon did. Continuously turn the heat up. Okay, so JD, question. What about unusual architecture? Keeping floors uneven, odd angles, other architectural features that would be judged unpleasant or off? Fantastic idea.
Yeah.
That's on the list. Yeah, that was under the disorientation. Yeah. So interesting fact, which one of the reasons I came across this was, in southern West Virginia, they had the bomb shelter for the president and the Congress and the House in the 50s and 60s for in case there was a nuclear attack on West Virginia on the Capitol. So right close to Lewisburg, West Virginia, in a place called the Greenbrier, they have a bunker underneath of it. And it was built to house the House, the Senate, the president, and the vice president, and a media, so that at a moment's notice they could be shipped there and put underground for future poor decisions. Now, we did the tour of the bunker, which was very fascinating, but one of the things that they went across was that they used architecture to keep people not to stay in certain places. And one of the places that they used that was in the lunchroom. So they would imagine, it's the bunker was as big as they could get it, but it wasn't huge. There's a lot of people that are going to be coming. So they have to keep people going into the dining hall and then move out. So one of the things that they did was they used a checked floor, red and white checkered floor, but then they offset some of the checkers in the floor so that it gave you an uneasy feeling when you were in there, so that you didn't want to stay in there. So you would walk across the floor, but for some reason feel a little bit queasy and you just wanted to eat and get out. So that kept people moving. So they use things like that.
I can see OCD people like freaking out. This is not right.
Yeah, we visited a place up in Door County, Wisconsin, and they had little cabins that you would stay in. And one of them, you can tell by using a level or actually just going outside and looking at the cabin that it had sunk a little bit one way. So it was off like this, but you couldn't see that inside. But boy, did that messed me up, because when I'm walking around in there for a long period of time, I actually started to feel a little dizzy and a little nauseous just because of how off it was. And the ceiling was real low too, which I don't know if that would have something to do with it, but the ceiling was real low, and the way it was tilted and the way the floor on the inside was kind of uneven. It was kind of tilted. It was rotated like 90 degrees. So there was like two levels of being off, and it was just really, it's weird. I was surprised the effect it kind of had on me, kind of being nauseous and not feeling right. As soon as I came out, it's like, oh, I feel fine now. It was just a really weird experience. I've never had anything like that happen, but I thought, boy, that'd be a great way to get people off their game.
I think the short ceilings would have, there's two effects that you could accomplish with that. For claustrophobic people, because it would feel like it's too close, they're closing in. And then sound, the acoustics in the place. If you have a lower ceiling, the sound's going to be off. You're going to have things bouncing. I don't want to say much quicker, but you're gonna hear a difference. I get a difference. Like my basement, we have a finished basement and then a finished ceiling, so I can reach up and not stretch out all the way, but the ceiling's probably about like here, as opposed to the normal height where I can't reach the ceiling in the main floor and the second floor. So there's a difference in sound down there when I'm doing like any kind of videos or recording or something. I have to account for that. So I think that would screw people up a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. One of the other going on with that, I mean, he brought up another thing with the disorientation, but also creating a space of vulnerability. So sometimes if you're in a room or in a location that is empty, or almost completely empty, and you can isolate. So if you can cause an isolation of one person and get them in an open space that is itself disorienting, isolation and being vulnerable, like not having a place to hide. So you don't have a place to run, to put something between you and the perceived threat. So there is open space between you and everything in there. So once you are vulnerable, it also increases your fear.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. All right. Okay, so let's get into what we might do manipulating the environment. How would you set it up? What would you put out? We already talked a little bit about pictures and other things. I think to be consistent with the story, let's say that, I don't know, the woman who died in the house used to wear a perfume that smells like roses. Well, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to paint the bedroom a rose-colored red, and then I'm probably going to have a picture of roses. Because these are things people won't necessarily look for as being creepy, but they've been shown to build the experiences, and the experiences correlate with these type of contextual cues in the environment. And I've seen this happen, and I think it was at Lemp Mansion in Missouri, where they said somebody always smelled roses in this one room. And then there was another location we went to that they said they smelled lilacs. Well, guess what? One room was red, and then they had fake roses there, of course, which was a really powerful contextual driver. And the other place, it was a purple room. And that's all they did. It was just simply a purple room, and people would report smelling something associated with that color. So that would be one other thing I would do. And then, of course, certain artwork that we talked about already. And the last thing I'll mention before we'll go with Tim is mirrors, because there's something about a mirror, and they've shown that in some studies that mirrors may have an impact on people having experiences, but others don't. But then again, if you're in a low light situation, and if you tell somebody that a former guest here stared into that mirror and saw something move behind them in the mirror, if they sit there and stare at that freaking mirror in a sensory deprivation state with low light, they're going to have an experience. There's a pretty good chance they're going to have the experience. So those are a couple things I would actually do inside the house. And I'll turn it over to Tim, and then maybe eventually we'll get into how we would manipulate the actual environment a little more with other things.
Okay. Actually, so to preface this, just so that you can kind of get an idea of where I'm going. So one of the hypotheses of the people doing the study, I know I'm almost out of my rum. Shit. Irish cream is, they have 8. It's impossible at this point. I'm having way too much fun. They have 8, narrowed down to 8 genetically, evolutionarily, whatever.
Evolutionary.
Predisposed. Thank you. Predisposed. Predisposed innate aversions.
We'd have to call the ambulance in for Tim. We'd think he's having a stroke.
Wait a minute. I'll get another drink.
Oh.
Shit, already. So the 8 that they believe are the main aversions are pain, suffocation, falling, in where you can't move, disease,
Okay.
the unknown or abnormal, sudden movement, and isolation. So those are the 8 things that people are born to avoid. So in this, the unknown and abnormal, there is another thing that is called the Uncanny Valley. So the Uncanny Valley is something that your brain reacts to because it doesn't fit into a regular narrative into your mind. So using something inside the house that is abnormal. So that would be, so I don't know if you've ever seen a doll maybe that had a full set of teeth. Or a dog that has dentures in it. It might be funny, but at some time it's going to be kind of creepy. Some type of environment that you can have in there that you are going to have some type of stimulus where you're going to create an uneasy or very uncanny feeling. Whether it be some type of toy, a mannequin. I know that they have the doll dresses or the dress forms, having those misshapen, pictures that have faded or look like they've been washed or had water damage where the face is dripped. So anything like that you can begin to cause people to have an unhappy situation. would be good for me. I would put stuff like that in there to begin with.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
And lots of alcohol so that they couldn't call for help.
All right, Kenny, what do you got?
I got a bunch here. So I can go off of what you originally said there, Dave. There's with the scents, where people smell roses and stuff. I would actually use those like Glad plugins.
Yep, I have that on mine.
Yeah, you
Good
can
one.
use those easily. You can put them behind a dresser or something like that, where they put out that scent every so often,
Right.
and it'll give that experience. Something else, and you're probably gonna laugh, but I would buy a bottle of fart spray, because it is so awful. If you just do something, just a spray in a vent or something, or in a room before a group goes in there, and then they smell it. If the ghost hunting group smells it first, because it doesn't stink like a fart, it really doesn't. It just smells awful. Now you're like, holy shit, what is that? Holy shit, what is that? Oh my god, that's a demon. That's
Somebody's
demonic.
going to get blamed.
You know, so you can totally do that. And you can do that with any kind of scents. Lavender is a very popular one.
Yep.
And then also burning matches, or something like that. If there's a part of the story has to do with a fire, and you go into a room, you light a match, you blow it out, you chuck it out the window. You know, after you blew it out, and made sure it's out,
Right.
Because you don't want to burn the place down. But you have that burning smell that's in the house. I can't tell you how many times, like, Donna has lit a one of those what are they called? I used to call them punks. Now I don't know what they're called.
Incense?
Incense?
Yes. I don't know why I totally forgot that word. But some kind of incense. And I'll come home from work, or I come down from here, and I'm like, what's burning? Why does this smell like a magic shop or a metaphysical shop? Why does this smell? Oh, she had one going on earlier. So, but that scent lingers. So it's really easy to do any kind of smell, whether it's an awful, gross smell, whether it's roses, lavender. If you're in there like 5 minutes beforehand, you can spray it and then walk away. You're never in the room, but the ghost hunters go in there, they detect it, and now it's part of their investigation. Something else I've come across over the years is hiding speakers in the walls, actually putting them in the wall and having them hooked up to a system where it's a Bluetooth or an RF wireless remote, and you can trigger knocks. You can trigger like short phrases or just words or even singing. The one that I found was associated with singing, with a little girl's voice singing nursery rhymes. But it's really easy to do that. It doesn't take much. You take out a vent, or if you're redoing a floor or renovating a room, you can easily put in a speaker somewhere and mount it just somewhere in the room, or in the ceiling. And that way it's a sound and no one can figure out where it's coming from. Definitely something you can do if you want it to. What else I have here? Speakers, fart spray. That cracks me up. Something else you can do is magic tricks. I mean, real, just basic magic tricks. If you want, say you want something to move. If you want something like in the background of your video to suddenly start moving, like it just goes across a shelf, like up here, where it's just going across, and you're like, holy shit, how the fuck did that happen? I don't know how that happened. And then you walk up to it and say, well, you know, this was moving, but you can see that there's absolutely no line on here at all. There's nothing tied to this. How did this move behind me? There's easy ways to do that, which I just demonstrated.
That was really good, actually.
Thank you. I said that
really
like
good.
3 hours ago. But you can do that where there is there is absolutely nothing attached to this. But I was able to make it move. and it's a practical effect. Obviously there's no CGI because I'm holding it. But it's actually done with just fishing line that I have strung all over my office here. But the end results, and I want to show you, just in case you come across this, is that the end, let me see if you can see that. You see the loop?
Yep.
So the loop was actually in the hook, right like that. So when I pulled it, I could pick this up and go like this. As soon as I pick it up, I twist it a little bit, the loop comes off of it because it's not actually tied to it. And now I can pick it up and show you, and you can inspect it. So there's stuff that you can do like that, where I can move almost anything in your house. This is just thread. This is actually thread, green thread, 15-pound test. I have 80-pound fishing line that I can use, which with this shit, oh my God, anything in your house.
Mm-hmm.
I can move your car with this. If you put it in neutral, I can move your car with this. That's how strong it is. So this is just examples. Like if I was setting up a haunted house that I was really trying to convince people to do, I have no doubt. And I have to credit magicians that I know. Mark Edward, Dustin Dean. These are magicians that have taught me these little tricks. So, but
cool.
You can do this easily.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
you would like going back to that. There's also something if you want to start the haunted house was if you can create a startle reflex or a startle response, which is again it's an innate response that you see a lot in children. So and you kind of desensitize yourself to it as you get older. But if you make a loud noise around especially a baby, they reflex, they jump. And that is a response that will begin the fight, flight, or freeze response, which you start a chemical reaction inside your brain and your body to begin, those type of responses. And those type of responses is what you want. So I don't know, I kind of thought about it, and I don't know how campy it would be or too bad, too obvious if you had something at the beginning. Fall or somehow make some type of noise where you can get a startle response, but it has to be auditory. So the startle response is only through hearing. So I don't know, but it's really good. It is definitely a very high kicker to starting your fear responses.
I'm thinking like. You just made me think about those snaps, those little things, the snaps that you used to play with. Like I used to get as kids. That would be perfect because you invite a group in, and as you're like, all right, let's start the tour. Let's go back to this room. And then either you, as everyone going this way, you kind of do one of these and toss it, or you have an assistant toss one behind everyone, and it goes bang. And there's your auditory response. So like, oh shit, what the hell was that? And then you go check it out, and I was just brainstorming. So
anything really. It's just to get the get that response kicked in, and your body starts whether you want it to or not. Your response system will adjust to the fear response. Now, how long it lasts depends, but you will have started the chain reaction inside the body, and to begin. Stress, and stress is really good if you want to create fear. So if you can keep somebody stressed, not always to the max, but one of the 3 tips from that is a variance in stress. So it's not good to stress somebody all the time, or they will just quit. They'll leave. It'll be over, or it'll become too obvious and not. But you want a variance in stress, so you keep somebody off balance. Again, it comes back to just keeping someone off balance, confused, disoriented, and you really have a really good control of their psychological state and their emotional state.
Yeah,
cool.
I think in the beginning, like if you were building this up, I think you would do a little bit. You'd follow the basic horror movie routine. You start small. The first group, the second group, just little things, maybe one or two experiences, little ones. That's it. And then the third group that comes in, 3 or 4, or maybe a bigger one, and just build it up until a certain level. Because once you get to a certain level, then
Right.
now you're showboating.
Yeah.
you're going to get caught.
You're going to get caught.
Yeah.
And I had some more subtle things that I took out of that recent paper, and I think Tim was the one who brought it up in one of our shows, things that go bump in the literature, talking about the correlations they found with different changes in certain environmental things. So temperature, obviously, if you could make it to have drafts or cold spots pop up every once in a while, or just leaving a window cracked and a door cracked somewhere, it's going to create a draft every once in a while that somebody's going to pick up on. High humidity seems to get people to cue in on certain locations. Low light, I think that's been said a couple times throughout the chat group. White noise, I talked about with the fan, because there's that old experiment that people who listen just white noise, they can hear white Christmas in it if they're primed enough. So they could be hearing things if they're appropriately primed. I would take a look at maybe some infrasound. Now this it can depend on how much you do and if people are having adverse effects. But infrasound would be interesting. And then there are ways to create what they claim, and sometimes this has been shown to work, other times it's been a complete failure and it's only expectation, but experience inducing electromagnetic fields, where you could have electromagnetic field coils, pulse at certain places or times and see if it would have an effect on people, or just having them pick it up on their damn equipment and then shut it off. And they're like, well, fuck, where'd it go? It has to be a ghost.
I like that. I like that.
Oh, dude. If you
John who had speakers in the walls, obviously. And then anything, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm just building on what you said. If you could have a coil like that, generate that field, and then pull it with fishing line, like across, like underneath the floor. If they're above you, and just walk, holding it against the ceiling, you would have it traveling, and then shut it off, and like, holy shit, it walked across the room.
Yep.
We watched that. That's awesome. I love that idea.
I don't know why, but I kind of think the fear, having someone pick up something on an EMF meter or whatever, and it's there. I mean, I think that's really cool. It'll hype them up. But when Dave said, just turn it off, like, even the thought of like, where the fuck did it go? Like, that would be like, that would be the moment where it would become like a little bit more tense,
Yeah, that would be a big experience, because it would just go away, and you would definitely have that. I tracked it across the room, and it suddenly disappeared for no reason. There's no scientific reason for this.
Yeah.
Boom.
Well, there's one. We turned it off.
We don't consider the obvious, Dave.
That's true. Other things I would do, anything that you could get or create that would encourage the phenomena of pareidolia.
Yes.
And then, of course, anything that has an ambiguous situation, that it leaves it open for people to interpret. So a lot of things we talked about would be part of that. So that's a couple things I took like right out of the literature of what they found correlations at places that are supposedly haunted that people report activities. So the cool part there is you're kind of taking the literature where people are trying to understand why they have experiences, and you're introducing them into a location to try to get people to have experiences. So take the literature and make it work for you. Couple things here real quick. Cobwebs, that would be great. Don't dust. Hire some spiders. And then Carol said, what about superstitious things like a black cat, ladder, broken mirror? Sure. Anything that leads to people interpreting or playing on their belief system and superstitions. So there's a whole lot of stuff.
That's actually a good idea. I mean, I'm thinking like I would buy a cheap mirror from a like Goodwill or thrift store and put it in a room. And when a team came in, let them go through the room. And then as soon as they walked out and went to a different area, hit it and just walk away
Mhm.
and be like, oh, you know what? I heard something up here, and everyone goes up and it's like, oh shit, the mirror's fucking broken. Oh my god, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah, that would, oh my god, that'd freak them out. That
The
and just
mirror.
you go around, and if you're not seeing, move things just slightly.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
a rocking chair or a kid's toy, just slightly, not huge, but just a little bit to get them to go, what the fuck?
You could do that.
If you have a room that you don't dust because of that, if you move it, there's your evidence right there.
There you go.
There you go.
You could do the mirror that fell and broke. It fell underneath a ladder and hit a black cat. And
You're all gonna die.
you'd say,
Oh my
guys,
God.
I'm out. You guys are fucked. I'll see you later. I'm not staying.
I think we should have somebody get fake possessed and choke themselves.
Oh, here we go.
Or do you have a couple plants that further, I guess say antagonize people, get them going, and have somebody, almost fake something to the point where they're like, wow, I feel like there's something coming over me, and they act strange or something, and you have to escort them off of the property because they weren't feeling well. I mean, there's a lot of there's going to be a limit, and there's going to be a certain level and probably some legal things you need to consider, but you can really screw with people.
Waiver, yes.
Waiver.
That's the waiver. And then
Secretly, the
maybe
waiver
you have a
was for
plant
our
like that,
protection, not yours.
and something happens and they leave, and then you could, hey, okay, everybody, we need to have a quick meeting. This is what happened to so-and-so. If you're not comfortable being here anymore, I'm going to give you the opportunity to leave now. Otherwise, those who choose to stay, that's your choice.
You could up the ante and say, like, whatever they pay, say they $20 to go in and investigate. You could be like, okay, look, this is what happened. If you guys want to leave, I'll refund your money right now. Like, even up the ante.
Yeah.
And go, I don't know if we can even have you here, but if you choose, that it's on you. If you want to leave, I'll give you your money back. And a ghost hunter worth their salt would be like, I'm nailed to the floor, dude. I'm not leaving anywhere.
If they show up and you tell them, look, I got to be straight with you, okay? I was like 15 minutes ago. I came down the stairs. I was pushed down the stairs, and I fell halfway down the stairs. So I'm not sure if it's safe for you guys to be here. So yeah, if you want to reschedule, because I just think it might be very violent. I'm not sure. And I'm worried about you guys. And if you want to reschedule, it's fine with me. It's cool with me, and we're good.
Give the man an Emmy.
See, won't you even up it?
I was
yeah, you can even say, look, we have a dog that comes here with me, and
he won't come in the
house. I
house.
found my dog dead inside, and I don't,
playing on the pet.
We had my dog's dead, and it was inside. I don't know what happened. It might be really dangerous, and a mirror fell on it.
But you know what? Go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say, what would be a really interesting experiment is for one of them, or if you got to the end of this, and you're like, okay, we're going to be done. We're not going to do this anymore. What if halfway through the night you said, hey, okay, everybody, we got to level with you. This was kind of an experiment. We were making things happen, making you think things were going to happen, but something really strange has just started happening, and we can't explore it. And I can't control what's going on right now, so I'm really uncomfortable with this.
You have to sign a new waiver.
Can you imagine telling them you faked it, and then you still are faking it, saying there's shit happening in the house?
Oh my god! You would have to.
I gotta write that shit down.
That creates a situation where the ghost hunters that have already been there, they have to save face. They're faced with a choice. Do they admit that they were duped?
But you left it ambiguous, saying that there's real stuff happening now, so we don't know what's us and what's something else. So maybe there was activity here the whole time, and it makes it almost more interesting.
So they can come back and say, "Well, our stuff was real because we validated that. We confirmed it. So that was real. So I don't know what you were doing, but our stuff was real." I mean, I wouldn't.
And then you could play it more and say, well, based on what we were doing, you should not have gotten what you got. There's no explanation for that.
Oh
So you could just do a reset and still freak the
Dude,
shit out of
we have to
people.
buy like an old hotel and just we just open it up to go.
We gotta do it now.
We gotta do it because we could fuck with so many people. Oh,
It'd be a lot of fun.
Bed and breakfast.
So
anyway,
anyway,
what's fun is when I like my little performance. I've done that in front of my wife, and the hardest part is to not laugh because I see my wife's face like, here we go again. He's talking so much bullshit.
Don't make eye contact.
Don't make yep. I know she's over there. I'm not looking at her. I'm not looking at her. So, but yeah, that's. I think that's the really. We should buy a hotel.
Sure.
Buy a haunted hotel.
We'll go shopping for one when we're in Gettysburg.
Okay. Yeah, everywhere there is haunted.
All right. Well, that kind of extinguishes my list. Anything else?
Let me see. What do I got here?
I just go on. There's different things for more isolation. There seems to be like a really good fear response to isolation. I checked this word out. It's called Nomophobia, and that is the fear of not being connected, and it comes from no more phone. So if you could have people leave their cell phones and not actually take their cell phones in, so that they do not have a way to have an outside contact other than us, it becomes a part of an isolation technique. You could give them, the handheld radios for any help that they may need, but they couldn't reach out any further than the inside of the hotel or the house that they were at that they were at for help. So that is just another isolation technique. Startle Response, I have that. I know that we kind of talked about the Devil's Tritone. We had that.
I'll be making special music and tones for this supposed haunted location.
Oh yeah, you have to.
Okay. All right. Well, that was fun. What else do you guys got? I don't want to cut your list short.
I got just briefly, not briefly, because I'm never brief. I would add another step to this, as in contact, because you want to get famous. I mean, if you're doing this, if you're going through the trouble of doing all this, you want to be famous. You want people to come out. So instead of jumping right to contacting TV celebrities, I would start with YouTube channels.
Yes.
Go to the YouTube channels that have like a full series where they go out to different places and invite them, because now they are doing the marketing for you.
Yep, absolutely.
And then once you get on to like 3 or 4 of them, and that creates some kind of buzz, because it's gonna, then you contact some of the network TV shows and say, hey, if you guys want to come see this place, it's been featured here and here and here, and we have all this evidence. I really want you to figure it out. And especially if you're living there and you have kids, definitely exploit that, because you say, well, I live here with my wife and my 2 young children who are so afraid. They're so afraid. They're not sure. They can't sleep in their rooms at night. They sleep in our bed because they're so afraid to be alone in their own rooms. And we really desperately need help. Can you come out and try to tell us what's going on and try to solve this problem?
Right.
So, boom, there you go. I think that's a beautiful tactic. I mean, we could make millions. Guys, we could totally rip people off if we were dishonest. But these are just, I mean, this is great. I love all the ideas we've explored tonight. But everyone that's watching, please remember these are just ideas.
But it gives you things to look out for, though.
Yeah.
If you're going to a location, especially one that's heavily advertised.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly, wasn't there a company that was out there that you could hire to make your house seem haunted?
Yeah,
I remember
They're
that.
probably watching this going, fuck, you just gave away all of our secrets.
There was.
They're
They
taking
set up.
notes.
They had a whole bunch of different audio visual tricks, magic tricks that they would employ.
Yep.
And it would make it seem like it. I
So-
think they got caught.
Did they?
I think not the company, but I think the hotel that was using them got caught.
Okay.
Now I'm gonna have to look into that.
Okay, what about costume guides and even allowing guests to dress up because that increases activity? Yeah, I mean, there's people that do reenactments that hope that it, I don't know, somehow brings out or is familiar to whatever the ghosts are supposed to be that are there. But yeah, I tell them certainly if somebody wanted to do that, you'd have the guides and the people that if they wanted to dress up, you'd want to give them the backstory and the history that we made up and why there's activity, where we think it came from, what period, what, dates, and that way they could kind of dress up and get into it. So yeah, that's actually, I like that idea because it's even more people getting more involved in the entire thing. So the more you can make people part of it, the more it's going to be real and they're going to have experiences and they're going to share those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, the only one I think I didn't really go over was for causing fear inside of a place is just that falls under the 8 is disease. And it's not necessarily meaning that it has to be disease. It could be anything in the environment that it could be potentially harmful to you. So, an old place that has lead paint that's chipping. So when you go into this area, you really should have a mask on. It won't necessarily have anything to do with maybe the haunting, but it's just a way to elevate stress. And elevating stress increases the chances of a misinterpretation of events that happen.
Right.
Yeah. This is the only thing I could really think about how to incorporate disease into a house other than, if it was a Victorian house, there's one in my town, well, not my town, but in a town really close. It's a beautiful Victorian home and it was owned by a doctor. And it was, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, you went to the doctor's house. And so if you got treated for diseases, you got treated for diseases there. So
just tell them it was an old TB ward and they got down into an area where they haven't cleaned and sanitized. And the last group that was here, somebody may have contracted tuberculosis. That'll make it for a fun evening for people.
Stress is what I've learned from I had such a good time researching this. I had so much fun. I didn't build shit of a haunted house, but I surely came up with ideas on how to make people scared.
No, but those are the concepts you need to understand if you're going to do an experiment or do something like this. Because when you understand the basic psychology or the science of it, then you can apply that to what you're doing, which is a good lesson in itself.
So I'm going to go out and really mangle this word.
Oh boy.
But the thing in the brain to study is the amygdala.
Amygdala. Yep.
Thank you. I got it. Almost got it. I got it. Amygdala. So that is the bad boy in your brain that is responsible for.
Mama said that's the devil.
I know the movie you're talking about.
Easy, water boy.
Sorry.
Now I want to do it in that voice, and I'm not going to be able to. So that is the thing in your brain that is responsible for determining if something is a threat or not. And typically it's going to err on the side of safety. And going back to the startle response, the auditory neurons have a pathway directly to the amygdala. And it's the only one that has that. So which gives sound an especially great thing for causing fear, but learning how to manipulate the amygdala will help you greatly in causing fear in people. That's just another note that I had there, and I thought I would do that, but at least it took only
I'm
twice.
enjoying every time Tim pauses to make sure he says it right.
Amygdala.
Maybe we should just have a list of words and we just keep holding them
on
up or
screen.
putting them up and seeing if we can read them. And when we can't anymore, the show's over.
When we do our live show and drink, let's just have a drunk scale where we increase and all of us have to read words. And you can tell how drunk we are.
There's going to be words we're going to look at and go, I couldn't read that when I'm fucking sober.
My drunk scale will be how many syllables are in a fucking word.
All right. I think we've covered everything we wanted to. I have on my list. How about you two?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then let's start with the closing comments. And Tim, we'll start with you.
I thoroughly enjoyed this. I got on this morning and I didn't stop, and I have other things I still want to go through and research. Absolutely. It made me want to go back to school just to study fear. I had so much fun with it. It's the thing that I can walk away with is, I always said, I have this saying that I like to say a lot, and it's coincidence is the bane of the paranormal. And, to me, coincidence often equates somebody saying something's paranormal or it was a ghost or something. But now I've come to believe that, stress in an environment can also create misinterpretation of events, basically for your own safety, because you will be hardwired to make an error on the side of safety. So stress and environment is really good. I really enjoy this a whole lot. I'm glad that you came up with this, Dave. And for the next week, I won't do shit at work because I'll be on Google Scholar. And I'm going to blame you, but you're going to get all the reports and
cool.
And, published papers in the private chat.
All right, Kenny.
This was a great topic. It flipped it on us, and I like doing that. We've done that once, I think, or where we turn the tables on ourselves. And with this, instead of criticizing other people or locations and experiences, we turned it back on ourselves and said, what would we do? What would we incorporate to try to fool people? And I think this was a great thought experiment where it really made us think, like, how can we do that? How can we, who have experience criticizing other people, fool them? Let's fool them. Let's fool ourselves, because that's basically what we're doing. We've told everybody what we do or how we criticize. So let's see if we can find a workaround for it. So I love this, and it made me really think. I sat down and I thought, like, all right, what would I do? How would I do this? Especially because I'm always thinking, like, what if some jackass like me comes along? How would I fool me into this? And like one of the things, this moving this was the big deal, because I'm always looking for something. I'm always thinking, if something moves, there's something attached to it. There has to be, that's moving it. How can I do that without physically attaching it to it so that I can pick it up and show you? That's a big obstacle. And it really made me think about that. So going through these steps and then incorporating steps from psychic stings that I've done in the past, with the whole priming, like taking weeks and months ahead of time to build up that story. That's what I've learned about from those sting operations. And I think it's beneficial because you can do that. And wrapping it all up, this provides the viewer with ammunition. You guys can now look at it and say, oh, I remember those guys talk about this. Let me check this a little bit closer. Let me look a little bit closer at this. Let me ask a certain question. Let me make sure that I am aware of where everyone is at every single second of the time, because, someone could be running into another room and breaking a mirror, for all we know. There's so much that we don't think about. So I definitely think this was a great show. I really, really enjoyed this topic.
I love the shit out of it.
Right there.
I had a great time.
It was fun. This was
It
really
was
fun.
I
It's
drank
kind
a lot
of fun to
tonight.
take all this stuff we've talked about, put it together, and flip it.
Yeah.
how would you use it? What would you do to try to fake people out? And, I think you can really go through this and everything we talked about. There's the context of the group or the individual. It's the type of things they would experience or you would manipulate: visual, sound, smell, object movement, create erratic functioning. There's the arousal part of it, priming and seeking things out. And then there's the contextual part that we spent a lot of time on: belief, expectation, demand characteristics, emotional and physical state, embedded cues, metaphorical or symbolic. And then there's the environmental stuff. And it's pretty interesting because looking at the psychological literature and then the parapsychological literature, and there's actually a couple papers and authors that have taken those things I just listed, and they've gone through haunted locations and trying to see how many of those things they can check off and analyze and say, this occurs in a haunted location, and the more of them that there are, the more experiences that happen. So there's actually quite a bit of psychology behind these things that we're talking about. And that's one thing that, psychology and parapsychology, they're not just looking, at least parapsychologists, they're not looking for ghosts or life after death. They're trying to understand why people have these experiences. And it's kind of fun to take that and say, okay, that's what they found. Let's go see if we can put a place together and get people to have experiences. So to me, it was a really fun exercise. And then I like the marketing part of it too. I mean, obviously with some of the stuff I do with work, to hear Kenny talk about the marketing and how would you use social media, digital media, and how would you really ramp it up? That could be a whole nother show in itself. And it's just really interesting. And I love that part of it because that's really going to build it. And the more you can get people just kind of bought into it before they even get there, it's going to be a lot more fun for them and a lot more experiences, or maybe it's going to be more scary for them. So that's why we have the waivers, so they don't get too scared and run off and hurt themselves. Anyway, great show. We're going to close it out here and talk about what's coming up. And all I know is Jen and I booked our trip to Gettysburg, so we will be there, and we'll be meeting up with Tim and Kenny. And I hear we're going to do an episode of 3 Tortured Souls. Looking forward to it, and that's my big announcement. I'm excited. It's gonna be great.
Let me check my schedule. Hold on. Yeah, I got something coming up.
You better show up now, or I'm gonna look like a real ass.
No, I'll be there. I'll be there with you guys, and I'm so looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to a nice vacation from work and having some downtime and some fun time. So getting drunk and in the presence of both of you guys is going to be, I don't know if we're going to get through a show or not, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
We're going to be waking up in different places.
I'm going to end up getting your guys' names tattooed on my body again. I won't remember it again.
We're going to have a amygdala tattooed on you, Tim.
They'll be spelled wrong.
All right, what do you got besides Gettysburg, Kenny?
So Gettysburg, well, briefly just announce it because Gettysburg, that's coming up. It's the Phenomenology Paracon, and that is June 3rd to 5th. That's the date all three of us are going to be getting together. For the first time ever, this is a monumental event, and we are going to record every freaking second of it.
Epic.
Because why not?
Posterity.
Besides that, the next event after that is August 20th, 22nd is the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash, which is again in Gettysburg. I'll be out there for the weekend setting up my booth, and I'm also in the dunk tank. So if you ever had a beef with a skeptic and you feel like dunking a skeptic, please come on out because it benefits Pennsylvania Wounded Warriors and kids with cancer. So it's a good cause. Come out and dunk me. Cool. September 25th is Para-Unity in Woodbridge, New Jersey. I am not set up there. I'm just attending. My wife is she's going to set up a booth with her Lucky Tiki Creations. So she'll set up with the crafts, and I'll have a home base so that when I piss off ghost hunters, I can run back to her booth and hide behind it. And then we have a new event coming up. I'm not sure if I'm going to sit up there yet or not. I know Donna is, but October 10th, we'll be at Selma Mansion in Norristown, Pennsylvania. Tim, you were there.
Yep.
and that's the Psychic Fair. So I'm going to be there. Just messing with the psychics because I love doing that, and they love me. So that's it for now.
All right, sounds good. Well, we'll be back next week with another show, and I believe.
One more. If anyone's out there with a haunted place and you want to hire us to make it more believable, contact 3 Tortured Souls.
We'll be glad to help. I think we have a couple ideas. All right. Well, I think Tim,
Kenny,
he's dying.
you make me fucking lose it at the end of the show. Stop.
All right, everybody have a good week. We'll see you next weekend, and we'll see you out in Gettysburg in 2 weeks. Have a good weekend. Take care. Stay safe. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye.